Welcome to Manhood, modeled where we study exemplary men from history who embody virtues worth emulating in our own lives. Today we're examining Winston Churchill and the trait of resilience. Throughout history, certain men have demonstrated extraordinary resilience that transcends their time and teaches us valuable lessons for authentic masculinity today. Let's discover what we can learn from Churchill's example and how we can apply this virtue in our own lives. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Churchill embodied resilience when he led Britain through its darkest hour during World War II. But what's often overlooked is that this came after decades of political failures and personal setbacks. His story matters to modern men because it demonstrates that our greatest contributions can come after our greatest failures, and that resilience isn't just enduring hardship, it's maintaining unwavering resolve when facing reality. Churchill struggled with severe depression, especially when he was kicked out of governance and parliament the first time, and went through periods of time where he told himself he would never get back into politics and certainly not lead the country. A key story for Churchill was in May of 1940. He became prime minister when Britain stood virtually alone against Nazi Germany. The other allies had bowed their heads to Hitler in hopes that he would be reasonable and stop his tyranny. Deep down, Churchill knew this was not true and had a tough decision to make. Rather than facing false hope like these other countries, he delivered his famous blood, toil, tears, and sweat speech, which I will attach to these show notes, acknowledging the brutal reality while maintaining absolute determination. This wasn't just political rhetoric. Churchill had spent years in the political wilderness, warning about Hitler while being mocked and dismissed. He had given very obviously true critiques, and it fell on deaf ears. People would listen to him and laugh and say that would never come true, and now he was facing this reality. During the war, he worked 18-hour days despite being 65 years old. He slept during air raids to maintain energy and personally visited bombed areas to show solidarity. His resilience wasn't just stubbornness, it was strategic, calculating what was needed and finding the resources to continue when others only saw defeat. Some core lessons we can learn from Churchill. The first one, prepare for resilience before crisis strikes. Churchill developed resilience through earlier setbacks. The disastrous Gallipoli campaign in World War I, losing his position as chancellor and being politically isolated for years. He used these experiences to develop both emotional toughness and practical skills that served him when facing Hitler. The modern application we can take away from this is we can build resilience during smaller challenges at work, at home, and in relationships so that we have that capacity when the major crisis hit. Oftentimes, our mindset is whenever something happens, we will be ready. But it's the truth that wherever we're at capacity-wise when the crisis hits is what shows up, is what's available to use within us. We will not magically come up with a game plan. We will not suddenly have the tools, and we certainly will not expand our capacity immediately in that moment. It is our ability to face setbacks and practice in the quietness of our own lives when no one is watching that gives us the capacity to show up in the times we are needed most. And this is what Churchill shows us in his ability to step up in one moment, which was a reflection of the capacity he had built for all those years. The second lesson we can take away from Churchill is using creativity as a resilience tool. Churchill painted as therapy for depression, which he called his black dog throughout his life. You can see pictures like this that he created, and this outlet provided psychological balance and perspective during overwhelming challenges. Our modern application for this is for you to develop creative practices unrelated to your primary work that refresh your mind and spirit when faced with prolonged stress. This can look like painting, similar to Churchill. It can look like taking a pottery class, a dance class. There was a day and age where the average man did things creatively simply for leisure, and it wasn't seen as needing to be an artist or being seen as feminine. It is core to our nature to create. And Churchill shows us what it means to use creativity as a restful counteraction to the constant stress that he was under to perform and produce. And he was obviously a man's man. He smoked cigars, he drank whiskey, he had a bushy mustache, and he led during the war. But yet he found and was in touch with this creative activity in painting to be able to ground him during times of stress. The third lesson we can take away from Churchill is communicate reality while maintaining hope. Churchill never minimized the dangers of what was among them at the time, as far as Hitler's threats and the realities they were facing as a country. And he didn't promise easy solutions. He said from the get that it would be difficult. It would take the entire country and every bit of effort from everyone in the country to see this through. Yet he always conveyed absolute conviction in ultimate victory. When he took leadership, he told people that if they could trust the process, if they could commit to the vision he was setting forth, that it would prevail, it would win out over the doubt and uncertainty that the times had brought. And where the doubt and uncertainty had caused other countries to bow out and cave in, those were the moments where Churchill seized the hope and understanding that if you follow the process, if you give it your all, if you are willing to fight with everything in you, that it would turn out as worthwhile, which it did. The modern application we can take away from this is in leadership roles and in family crisis, honest acknowledgement of challenges paired with confidence builds trust and collective resilience. So whatever hardship you are facing within your family or workplace, call it how it is. See it for all the negative repercussions, all the current ways that it is affecting everyone, and do not shy away from being able to face it head on. But as you do, have a sense of hope and restoration that you and whoever's involved's ability to face it head on, trust the process, go through it is worth it, because in the end, whatever lies on the other side is worth going through everything that leads up to that point. The next lesson we can take away from him is document your journey. Throughout his life, Churchill wrote extensively about his experiences, turning setbacks into meaning through his reflection. The modern application here is we can journal regularly about challenges that we face, extracting lessons that convert difficulties into wisdom rather than just painful memories. Journaling isn't just a nice to have or something that only introverts or very introspective people do. It is something that we can all do to make sense of our lives and not just experience it in the moment, but write it down in a way where we can reflect on it later and get a sense of where we were at that time, and key underlying insights that may lie once we start to journal regularly. The final lesson we can take away here from Churchill is that resilience includes strategic rest. Despite the war's demands, Churchill maintained his ritual afternoon nap. Yes, every single day, even as bombs were going off and the world was basically on fire, he made sure to implement his time of rest because he recognized that sustained resilience requires recovery, that a war is not won overnight and you cannot get overwhelmed or work yourself to the bone in the short term sacrificing the sustainability long term. The modern application of this is during our own prolonged challenges. How can we intentionally schedule recovery periods rather than pushing until breakdown? A good example of this that you can try is taking a Sabbath. This comes from the Jewish tradition, where from sundown on Friday to sundown on Saturday, it is a time of rest where work ceases and you enter into a timelessness in a way. Yours doesn't have to be that same time frame, but just find consistent times throughout the day and the week and the month and the year, respectively, to rest, to implement a time of reset where you are not constantly looking at a screen or trying to accomplish something. So let's end here with talking about a practical application to Churchill's lesson of resilience. To develop a Churchill-like resilience, start by identifying your own resilience baseline. This is how well you currently handle setbacks and stress. This will also be contingent on different areas. You may be very resilient at work in handling setbacks, but you could really struggle with handling setbacks at home, either in conflict with your spouse or with friendships, or maybe it's physical with exercise. You want to find that baseline of resilience in every area. Then you want to implement the resilience triad. So this looks like physical practices that build endurance, which are regular challenging exercises that you can try, from running to lifting weights to yoga, anything that's going to confront the beliefs within your mind and make the comfort bow to whatever exercise you're doing. If you have a fear or a setback and it is in your mind, the only way it's going to be confronted in a way is through physically putting yourself to the test. Also, developing mental practices that build perspective. Things like reading the history of others who endured greater challenges, like we learned today with Churchill, and spiritual practices that build meaning. Reflecting on your deeper purpose beyond immediate circumstances, learning to step back, take a look at the deeper story that's going on in your life, and understand how to trust the greater vision and unfolding of your life. Beginning today, when facing your fears, beginning today, when facing your current challenge, whatever that is, write down both the brutal facts you must accept, the realities of the situation, and the aspects you can control through persistent actions. This Churchill-inspired practice prevents both denial and defeatism, the twin enemies of true resilience. So that's it for today for Manhood Modeled. Until next time.